We like to talk about films for your consumption. Come take a seat, I'll tell you something. If you like movies, we're the thing for you. You're watching FilmBrew
Podcast.
Welcome back to it's now episode 2 of the FilmBrew podcast. I'm Jason.
I'm Brody.
And today is an especially special podcast for 2 reasons, actually. Because it's our first special. We're doing a Wes Anderson filmography, I guess, if you will. And, I mean, I guess the little bit less special part is we have with us our second guest. It is
Mr. Sain.
Mr. Sain. How you doing, Mr. Sain?
I'm doing well. The most handsome of your guests so far, and that's a clear choice.
Arguably.
David Flores is a very interesting person.
Okay, so without any interruption, let's just get into the coffee. We can't be called FilmBrew without the brew. All right. So, Birdie, why don't you introduce the brew for today?
So, for us, me and Jason here, we had a simple Cafe Bustelo espresso ground coffee brew. It just fits. You know, we could have got fancy with it, but I think, you know, it kind of fits with a Wes Anderson aesthetic, which is what we're going to be talking about today, but we'll get into that after the
Why don't you go grab the
yeah. Go ahead and pour that.
All right, so Birdie's going to go ahead and grab, actually, the container, because we forgot. All right, first things first, it smells magnificent. Like, just from, like, I mean, I still haven't even poured it, and it just smells great. So you can hear a little coffee pour.
It fits for Wes Anderson, you know. It's yellow. So, you know. And yeah. We could have got, you know, a simple.
Oh, my bad.
I got my.
Yeah, we could have got a simple, you know, French roast, I guess. Because, I mean, I guess really what we're celebrating is Wes Anderson's new film, The French Dispatch, that was released. Mr. Sain, you actually treated us to watching French Dispatch in theaters. How was that experience for you?
It was a learning experience. What I can feed you wild animals and what I can't, you know, feed you. So, Brody, I've never seen anyone turn down, what was it, Raisinets?
Yeah.
Chocolate raisins.
But you're strong. You have willpower, and I commend you.
Yeah. I mean, it was my first time having chocolate raisins, and I'm not gonna lie, they were extremely enjoyable.
No, going to a movie. I shared this with you guys. Is more often than not, as I've gotten older, I go to the movies by myself, and so anytime I have company to share a fine movie, I enjoy it. So.
It's great.
What kind of coffee do you have, Mr. Sain?
I am drinking. So, for the record, I started drinking coffee less than a year ago. I've always detested coffee. I'm heavy on caffeine. I have a terrible habit of soda in the morning. But I made my wife a coffee sometime over the summer in a hotel. She told me exactly how to do it. And it was like 3/4 cup full, and then then fill the rest up with French vanilla. And I filled it up too high. And so I had to walk back to the room. But in order to make it, I kept spilling it. So I took a sip of it. And my God, was it good. Yeah. What I realized is that I don't like coffee, but I really like creamer. And as my wife says, I have the sort of the palate of a second grader. And so, you know, I love ketchup and creamer. So
you say ketchup?
Well, not in my coffee. I'm just saying.
No, but you said ketchup?
Well, ketchup. That's my wife making fun of me. Right. Like, I would never put like ketchup on a steak or anything, but that's the sort of thing that she thinks.
I mean, I don't know. So, you're putting creamer in your coffee. I mean, it's not too unbelievable that you'd put ketchup on your steak.
So I got a vanilla macadamia. It's Lion. I buy expensive coffee because I can. As a teacher, teachers in Arizona make a load of money. And so I buy expensive coffee. Here it is. By the way, don't swear on this podcast, just me. And then
it's our podcast,
I got my International Light cold creamer. That's my creamer for the day. And I just love it. So I have coffee quite a bit now. Or I have a little bit of coffee with my creamer. I don't want to look at it.
You see, I can't relate, Mr. Sain. I just can't stand creamer in my coffee. I mean, I can stand maybe like oat milk. I put oat milk in my coffee, but creamer, sweetened creamer, is just no-go for me.
Maybe at some point I'll expand my horizons. I had a buddy who he basically said he was taught to drink black coffee when he was 12 because he was a hunter, and he goes, the lesson was, if you can drink black coffee, then you can survive anywhere. And so that's his thing.
Surviving.
That was not me. I am not a hunter.
All right, so Brady, why don't we take our first sip of this? I mean, it smells great. It just smells. Very strong.
It is strong.
It is really strong. Let me take a look at this.
I don't feel like a man right now next to you two. It's okay. With my cold creamer.
Always pure and flavored.
It's
like
pretty
no
smooth.
other. It is very smooth. It's stronger than the coffee we had last time, which I really hope the last coffee would have been strong for being it looked very hardcore on
Very
the outside.
hardcore. That's a weird way to describe coffee. Hardcore.
What Wes Anderson character does this coffee taste like?
Oh man.
Hold on.
Let me take another.
Let me take another sip.
Is it like the Harvey Keitel character in Grand Budapest? Tattooed up, bald, in prison?
You see, that's what I thought the other
This one tastes like I'm trying to think, because I now that you say that, like, I want to feel it. I want to feel what character it is. It's Owen Wilson for me, but I'm not sure which film.
Owen Wilson. Why Owen Wilson?
I don't know. I just see him.
Maybe bottle.
I feel like this is a
Maybe bottle
Grand Budapest coffee, for sure.
What you guys are describing, that's how it's coming through to me.
I don't really taste Bottle Rocket. I feel like Bottle Rocket would be like a Folgers.
Andrew Brody in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody in
Yeah.
the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah,
Ooh.
very Adrian Brody.
Yes, okay.
I feel like more William Dafoe.
Oh,
Grand Budapest.
those
But,
are three good choices. Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely Grand Budapest.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's very strong though. I don't know if that was our fault because we were going through a little troubles making this coffee.
Yeah, there's some troubles with it. It took a while.
My wife, so we use a French press, and my wife's very, very clearly, the first time I started making it, she said 3 minutes. You press down at 3 minutes, and I think you guys pressed 20.
Like at 20 minutes, and I don't know if you saw, but I was having some trouble pressing it down.
It did have a nice foam though.
It didn't come out that bad.
It didn't come out
I'm
bad.
liking this. So, should we get into?
I think we should get into it.
Yeah, we'll let you start. You're our
Let you
guest.
start.
I feel what's so interesting, and like if we talk about the French Dispatch, is I feel so unprepared, or underprepared is maybe the better term, with only one viewing. That's the thing about his movies. I don't know how much with one viewing. I feel inadequate to talk about it, if that makes sense.
I told the same thing to Brody because French Dispatch was a film with so much content. It was just packed with just dialogue and visuals. And one view, I was telling him, I was like, we weren't supposed to talk about French Dispatch after we saw it. But the one thing I did tell him was like, this needs 2-3 viewings for sure. Because like this is just a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And I did not put the French Dispatch on my top 5 list, but I think it could end up there potentially. I read this one thing, or I was listening to actually another podcast about it. Which of those 3 stories do you think could be turned into a feature film? I like that question. So we had the 3 stories, right, in the French Dispatch.
Yeah.
Which one would you prefer, or would you like to see?
Benicio del Toro story, the first one. I love that.
Yeah,
one.
that was a really good one. That was that.
Like I told my dad after he first watched it, was like that first story, that first segment, that could have been a film on its own. I love
The
it.
Benicio del Toro in prison one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did like. I think that one was the most well written of the stories. I did also like revisions to the manifesto. I feel like that was a good one. That was a entertaining one. But the first one, that was, I think that was the most. He went at that story like
There's something so beautiful about that.
like the best.
Yeah.
It was the fact that he put this small segment in this, this film full of these little segments, and I felt so much from each. But that first one with Benicio del Toro, that was something beautiful about
And
that.
it's a theme amongst Anderson's movies, kind of like the story of an artist. He talks about these artists a lot. You have like Rushmore, for example, where you have a playwright, just stuff like that. The story of an artist is something that Anderson, I feel like, tackles very well.
Quite a bit.
You guys, I was trying to like get a beat on him, and there's obviously stylistic things he does that are in all his films, right? Like his titles and the way he does chapters in a way.
Yeah. His symmetry.
Like his just the way he shoots a film.
Yeah.
But then, and I was thinking about another director, M. Night Shyamalan. Are you guys where
I've seen
he did
films.
he did The Sixth Sense, and I feel like after that he always tried to like get a gimmick at the end of his films
With the twist endings and stuff?
Yeah, twist, right?
Yeah.
Where I feel like Anderson is totally different, where I feel like he could make a movie about anything with any subject,
Oh, yeah.
and he'll still use his themes that show up throughout, and like you said about talking about artists, for example. But I just feel like he could do you never know what his movie's going to be about, and I love that.
I think that's what makes a great, filmmaker overall, is when it's not. And I'm sure I've heard this somewhere, a quote of another filmmaker, but I can't remember. But it's like a filmmaker could turn anything, it can make a film out of anything, but it's like themes. They keep their themes. It doesn't matter what story you give them; they'll create their film. Like you can even look at Scorsese, and a lot of people say his films feel the same, but if you look at, he has a variety of films from different subjects, but they all have that, a Scorsese theme. They all share that same theme.
Yeah. And I feel like they take that from the way they were brought up. Because Scorsese, that he grew up in New York, right? He grew up in New York, and a lot of his early work and throughout his filmography, it's a lot of that. I remember he was talking about it because I think he said he met De Niro when he was young.
Yeah, they lived around each other.
And that they work so well together because they grew up in the same environment, and so that's why. And
you see that with Wes Anderson,
with Wes Anderson, with Owen Wilson, that they grew up in Texas, and they attended film school together. And
it's interesting to me, like they feel so honest, right? So because they stick to their themes, they stick to what they know.
Yeah.
But again, their subjects are different. One of my other favorite guys right now is Richard Linklater. He also grew up I think he grew up in Austin, and I think Anderson was Houston. But they're both make completely different films, any subject matter. But again, they always come back.
Oh yeah.
And so, like with Anderson, like, is there a film out there that doesn't deal with some type of parental abandonment or isolation or just despondency? You know what I'm saying? And
isolation is a big one.
Aquatic, it can be anything.
Like he made Fantastic Mr. Fox and such. Use these kids films, and yet he saw those themes in them.
Yeah. That's it's so relatable, I think, and I just love honest work. And this I found interesting on a little research. So he wrote Rushmore before Bottle Rocket.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And I always felt like with authors, their first book isn't necessarily the best written book, but it's the best book. I've always found that to be true, or usually found that to be true, because that first one you just pour it out, right? It's the most real you're going to get. Even in fiction, of course. And Rushmore, I love Rushmore so much because of that, I think.
Yeah, I think it was probably one of his most personal films because I'm sure you guys know this. I don't know if you guys do, but it was filmed in his hometown, in his high school. And I saw an interview, and it was just like, they found a high school in, I think it was like Ireland or something, just like these different high schools that they wanted to film it at. Yeah. But ultimately they just ended up doing it at his high school in Houston, Texas. And I mean, I've a lot of people were talking about how this might be like maybe like a tribute to his younger self, and I really see that in Rushmore. Rushmore's a big one.
It could have been a very personal film for the fact that the whole story behind it, behind Bottle Rocket going into Rushmore, to me, you know, since this is kind of like the field of work I want to go into, it's a little sad because the whole thing with Bottle Rocket was a failure.
It's a flop.
It was a flop, and Owen Wilson, you know, he dropped. Luke Wilson was up there in Rushmore. He had a little part in that, but Owen Wilson, he didn't want to take any part in Rushmore. I think he produced it, maybe, or co-wrote it with Anderson.
He co-wrote it, yeah.
Co-wrote it. But he didn't want any other part of it because he thought, well, it's gonna be the same thing. You know, I think this is a good part to talk about how Bill Murray kind of saved Wes Anderson.
Fun fact. I actually I read something. I don't know if this is entirely true because I did see an interview with Bill Murray, and that I read something that Bill Murray was open to the idea of doing Rushmore for free because upon his first reading of the screenplay that he just liked it that much. But I mean, in an interview with him, he just said that, you know, he was willing to get, you know, paid a little less. But I don't know if like it was true that he was willing to do it for free, but.
I read something else on that where they were going over budget on something and Murray just cut a check. Like they needed something for a day's shoot and Murray's like, yeah, whatever, I got it. Here's a check. Get it. You need it. And that was that. Since we're talking about Bill Murray, and obviously he's huge. He's a big a part as Wes Anderson as Wes Anderson, right? Like in Owen Wilson, he's just he's everywhere with it. When you guys, as you've been growing up, like, is this the Bill Murray, you know, these type of roles? So I grew up with Bill Murray as Ghostbuster, right? As Bill Murray in Stripes. So Bill Murray I grew up with was Saturday Night Live Bill Murray. Yeah. And then the first film where he had done like The River's Edge, I think it was called, back in the early 80s. But it was kind of a sneak peek into this type of role.
Yeah.
But this is the role where I absolutely fell in love with Bill Murray, because the other stuff, yeah, he's funny, he's great, the movies were hilarious, but oh man, Bill Murray in Rushmore is my favorite Bill Murray ever.
Yeah. I think he's great, and I think I love about Bill Murray was that, you know, he spent a lot of his, you know, most of his career doing like these 80s comedies and stuff, and like he was big for that. And then later in his career, he did all these, you know, independent small films, and that's the Bill Murray I knew. I know the Bill Murray from Lost in Translation, Rushmore, the Jim Jarmusch stuff. I know him from all those films. And I love him for that. Like, he became one of my favorite actors from those films.
So was your introduction, that was your introduction to Bill Murray, and then you probably saw the other movies later? Is that kind of how it worked for you?
I think I saw the other films around, like I saw Ghostbusters probably around the same time frame of where I saw Rushmore, but it was, I guess I felt more of a connection to Rushmore, to the fact that I kind of forgot about Ghostbusters. Not saying it's a bad movie, but like when I watched Rushmore and Ghostbusters, me at that time just went down the Rushmore Bill Murray route and started watching those films.
Because he is more memorable in films like Rushmore, Lost in Translation, that it leaves more of an impact with you, like personally, as you know, because he's an actor. Like you feel like a more personal relationship with his work in these films more than like Ghostbusters. Do
you guys see, on a little side note here, I see Will Ferrell going down this path. Did you guys see Everything Must Go?
I haven't seen a lot of Will. I think I know what you're talking about.
That's him as the recovering alcoholic, and it just feels like he has a second or third act in him that is going to be kind of the Bill Murray template. I can see it.
I always wanted Jim Carrey. I don't know where he's at right now, but that kind of happened with Jim Carrey during the early 2000s, because one of my favorite performances from him is Eternal Sunshine. It's a beautiful performance. And I see a lot of, you know, even Adam Sandler has opened up about this, the fact that he knows, I think we all know at this point that Adam Sandler is a good actor.
Yeah, you got films like Punch Drunk Love, Uncut Gems.
But he said, you know, he just prefers doing, like, he knows they're not, like, he opened up about it. He knows he's not making good movies, but he has a fun time with them. And that's all good, you know. But I think a lot of these comedians, when they, you know, because they're funny, and, you know, funny itself is a talent, because not everyone's funny, but, like, even they could, like, put themselves out there as these, like, dramatic actors, and sometimes end up doing some of the best roles, you know.
Yeah. Well, like, how many funny movies take place with when you're in your 50s?
Exactly.
It's a game, it feels like.
Once so if you want to keep older, you go into that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to play the wise old man, or the oh man, no, I can't wait to talk about Gene Hackman and Royal Tenenbaums. But just like as you get older, you're gonna have to. These actors probably have to, move with the times a little bit. I imagine.
I always thought about that, like, what? Because I don't know why they reminded me, but it reminded me of Martin Short for some reason. And I've only seen him like one movie, but I've seen him in a bunch of different stuff. And as he gets older, I just see him popping around. And he's still, I don't know why, I always found him as one of the funniest comedians out there.
I saw him recently with Steve Martin in Reno.
That's cool. I like Steve Martin.
I called in sick that day. Shh.
I remember that. You told us about that.
I do nothing. You know nothing. All right.
Nothing.
All right. I think we should start heading into Anderson's kind of filmography. Yeah. And I feel like a good place to start is with Bottle Rocket.
Bottle Rocket was, besides The French Dispatch, was the last film I've seen from him. Like, I've seen all of his filmography, and then I watched Bottle Rocket. And I think, because my dad, I talked to him about it. I was like, hey, Dad, Bottle Rocket, should I watch it? He was like, no. You've seen the best of Wes Anderson. There's no reason to watch Bottle Rocket. But I ended up buying the Criterion Blu-ray copy of it because I just wanted to watch it. I'm a completionist like that. I had one film to watch from him. I decided to watch it. I bought it, and I fell in love with it. It's a very amateur film. It is a debut and stuff. It's the story and everything. It's structured so weird. That's such a messy film, but Wes Anderson, a lot of his early stuff is shown in there. Like, a lot of his stuff that's seen in, like, The French Dispatch. You could see, if you, like, at least on his third watch, you could see so many little things that he continued going on with. And it's a comfort film to me. I found so much comfort in the little thing. And I think some of Wes Anderson's funniest films are co-written by Owen Wilson. I noticed that as his films go on, you see who co-wrote it. And the ones with Owen Wilson are the funniest ones. I think Bottle Rocket is such a funny movie. It is. There's so many small pieces of that film that make me laugh.
It's really heartwarming, and it's like it's a very charming film. So, real quick, let me give like a little rundown of the film. Bottle Rocket, a tale about a directionless man by the name of Anthony. He's played by Luke Wilson. He's fresh out of the psychiatric institution. He joined his, arguably more deranged friend, Dignan, played by Owen Wilson. And their attempt to live out Dignan's fantasy of living a life of crime. They rob a library. While running from the law, Anthony falls in love with a housekeeper named Inez. And, it's extremely heartwarming.
And it has James Caan in it. And Mr. Sain, you brought up a while ago that you saw Thief. And I don't know why, but it's funny to me. I always saw Bottle Rocket as like a sequel to Thief. When they have no connections, except James Caan and crime. I thought that's what he went on to at the end of Thief. That's what he went on to.
Yeah.
I love Bottle Rocket.
That's really cool, actually. I never made that connection. I'm not going to lose that now. That's going to be burned in my brain forever. Okay.
All right. So, let's talk about the film a little bit. Right. So, what I really thought was charming about this film and about, Anderson's early writing style is that, they're the characters in the film, Dignan and Anthony, they're trying to, live this like lifestyle of crime. And like they think, the whole entire film, what's visually shown and like what's written is contradicting, what they think they look like, because I feel like they think they look like these like badass, crime robbers, when in the film they look like these like goofy guys who don't know what they're doing.
Like the Wilson brothers.
Yeah, like they look like the Wilson brothers. And from this early film, we see a lot of what's gonna like become, a pattern in Wes Anderson's movies, because, the character Dignan, he's kind of like all the characters are lost in a way.
All his characters, they fall down the same path, and you see that in his first film, Bottle Rocket.
Dignan, a character who's lost. You can see him as a very insecure character, because he wants to be like this great leader to his gang. And what's funny is that while he wants to be a great leader, so many like little aspects just knock him down so easily. Like the fact that what's his name, Bob, took the car away.
Yeah.
You know, foiled his entire plan.
I love Bob. One of my favorite characters.
Bob's older brother. There's that scene where he's in his little jumpsuit, and Bob's older brother starts making fun of him, and he just completely shuts down.
Yeah, he shuts down and just says, I like this jumpsuit.
I like this jumpsuit. And you know, that's a thing we keep seeing on, because I mean in Rushmore, his film after that, you see a lot of that like isolation, kind of lost characters.
He creates a lot of egotistical characters.
Yeah.
Like all of his main characters he has in his films, they feel the need to have, they have that insecurity within them, but they always feel that need to prove themselves to something. I think one of the biggest films with that is, we'll get to that when we get to that, but it reminds me a lot of, you know, Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah. It's definitely a theme, because, I mean, we got, in Bottle Rocket, obviously, yeah, so I got a little tier list up here. We're pretty much just gonna rank kind of what we felt about some of these films. So, all right. So, Bottle Rocket. How do you guys feel?
I think it's. I think we just get out of the way now. It's probably the lowest that any Anderson film would go. But this is just my. I think, you know, we'll all share our thoughts about it. But I think I would say it's about a C, right in the middle.
It's bordering between C and B, because I feel like I should take some of my bias out of it, because I just love it so much, because it's such a amateur film.
I mean, I love it,
and it's got like so much charm. It's comforting. You know, it's just.
But like, this is how I would do it. Like, think about the other films that are gonna get put in the B's.
You're right.
And does Bottle Rocket hold up?
But what if it was its only film and you stumbled on it? Wes Anderson wasn't a name, and someone gave you a VHS copy of it and said, "Watch this." Would it be higher or lower than that?
It would be. That's kind of what I said. It would probably be higher.
It would probably, but I think we're talking in comparison to.
Because I'm thinking about the other films we put in the B section, simply wouldn't. They would destroy, you know, Bottle Rocket. Because I've seen what Wes Anderson has come to be, you know. If someone gave me Bottle Rocket and said, this is this one movie, this one dude never made another movie again, I'd be like, that was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I wouldn't like think about it as much, but I would really enjoy that.
But like, yeah, what if Tarantino, like Reservoir Dogs, was his last one? You're like, oh, that's cool.
I think it's funny that you compare Bottle Rocket and Reservoir Dogs, because I did really get like a Reservoir Dogs.
100%.
Yeah. I actually think I saw something where Anderson was talking, or it was Owen Wilson was talking about how it was originally supposed to be kind of like a Goodfellas, kind of like gangster movie.
I saw a lot of Mean Streets in it. A lot of people's early films remind me of Mean Streets or something.
But it's funny though that the 90s were a reaction to the 80s, and it returned to the 70s, right? So the 90s were unbelievable for film.
Yeah.
And it's because of Anderson, it's because of Tarantino and others, obviously. And Scorsese kept making movies, but man, the 90s were amazing.
A lot of great films in the 90s. Paul Thomas Anderson started in the 90s.
Yeah, that's right. And Fincher, did he start in the 90s?
Who?
Fincher?
Fincher started in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah. So
I actually think, I saw that Martin Scorsese said that Bottle Rocket was, I think, his favorite movie of the 90s.
Yeah, Scorsese liked Bottle Rocket.
Loves Bottle Rocket.
Yeah.
So,
well, if it's good enough for Scorsese.
If it's good enough for Scorsese, I think we'll
that Scorsese kid, he might make it someday too.
Yeah.
That
Scorsese,
kid has some future.
So you want to... what do you guys think?
I think I'm comfortable with C.
Want to put it in
C it.
C it is. So Bottle Rocket.
C's not a bad score. C's a tier. Now Rushmore.
Okay.
Your little synopsis of Rushmore.
My little synopsis of Rushmore. Let me scroll. Oh no. Rushmore. Coming of age tale that follows Max Fisher, played by Jason Schwartzman, Herman Bloom, played by Bill Murray, and Rosemary Cross, played by Olivia Williams. It's divided, a trend that we see amongst a lot of Anderson films is divided into segments, months. It's got a chapter-like structure that we're all familiar with. It follows Max Fisher as he goes to this kind of like pretentious, high-class high school that he very obviously shouldn't be in. I mean, from what we can tell,
He wrote a play.
What was that?
He wrote a hit play.
Yeah, he wrote a hit play.
He got in.
He got in. He's on scholarship, and it just follows him. He falls in love with a teacher there. It's kind of like a love triangle type situation. A lot of empty people, a lot of hurt people.
Was Brian Cox in that one? Was he the one who played the
Yeah,
principal?
he's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was a heartwarming one. This is probably one of my favorites. So yeah, Rushmore, guys.
This was Jason Schwartzman acting debut, I believe.
Yeah. I saw a lot of things saying that Anderson had trouble finding a casting for Max Fisher, and that he said like within 3 minutes of meeting Jason Schwartzman that he was like, this is the guy.
Yeah, I love Jason Schwartzman, and I love him in this film, but I want to ask what you guys think. You think that's true, or do you think it's because he had connections to the Coppolas?
Isn't that his uncle? It's his uncle, right?
And then Roman Coppola started writing his other films with Wes Anderson. I think he was a co-writer in French Dispatch and whatnot. And so you think that,
I didn't think about it that way.
Maybe a little incentive to cast him for it.
He is absolutely perfect in this movie. So I'll go that route.
Yeah, Jason Schwartzman is great.
He is
I
great.
love Jason Schwartzman. I love him in everything. I love it even in like Moonrise Kingdom when he makes a small cameo.
Yeah, or Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, and he's just in there. If he's in there even for like a second, I'm happy. I love Jason Schwartzman.
It's comforting, isn't it, to see the guys pop up?
Oh yeah, I love when they all just pop up. It's weird for the French Dispatch. I guess he was advertised, but my mind blocked it out. But when Owen Wilson popped up for the opening segment, I got so happy. I totally forgot that Owen Wilson was even going to be in it. I like when his little actors just pop out.
It is, and that's another charming thing about Anderson films is that the kind of like the continuing with the same kind of. He doesn't. I mean, he doesn't use the same cast, but he uses like kind of the same outline.
Yeah.
Some familiar
Always
faces.
a couple new ones, right? A couple new characters never been in this film.
Especially
then
in
5 or 6 more.
Yeah, especially in Grand Budapest. Like that cast is just it's very deep.
There's so many people.
There's so many people.
And even in Rushmore, you see a bunch of new faces, but then Luke Wilson kind of just pops out of nowhere.
All right.
He told me to dress up or wear a suit.
Yeah, he's wearing scrubs.
So yeah, the film starts off.
Are you?
These are OR scrubs.
That film was funny.
Rushmore is probably one of the more comedic ones. I feel like Rushmore, he started getting more of a grasp of what he wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
I heard that, he kind of felt more comfortable making this one.
My wife says I don't laugh out loud very often. I laugh out loud all the time in that movie. First showing, 10th showing, 100th showing. When he's going to get kicked out early in the movie, when the Brian Cox character says, Max, you got to get your grades up. And then he sees Dirk, and Dirk's like, so what are you going to do? And the normal answer would be, well, I guess I got to quit some clubs and do some study. And he's like, only thing I can do, write some letters,
Yeah.
That's so funny to me.
So Max, the character, his life revolves around around the extracurricular activities. He owns he started, what was it, kite flying?
They had that whole montage.
The whole montage was great. I loved that montage.
So we were gonna. Talking about the music, I'm gonna leave it mostly to you guys when you talk about your old needle drops and everything.
Yeah.
But this is the movie where I think he sort of the template of how he uses music in film.
Yeah.
There are 3 montages in this film, and they all have the perfect song to match.
Yeah.
So I love his montages, and I love the songs he chooses to go with them.
One of my
Just to throw-
favorite ones of that was, it's not in my top 5 needle drop, which we'll get to that at the when we're finished with this, but one of my favorite parts of that film was the whole montage of him doing, what's it called, cartwheels and stuff on the basketball floor, whatnot, with the Here Comes My Baby by Cat Stevens.
Baby,
favorite scenes.
That was great. I don't know. Wes Anderson does montages unlike any other director. It's just the way he puts them together, and he uses kind of his best framing when he's doing montages, his more of his unique stuff. That's just something I appreciate.
There's a few directors that really use montage well, because like montage is like a hit or miss in films. You know, sometimes they feel unnecessary, but then you get Scorsese with his montages, and then you got Wes Anderson with his. They all feel like they add something. They don't really feel unnecessary. You know?
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, other people do montages great, but just no one does it kind of like the way Wes Anderson. It's very unique. It's very
and it's not guaranteed to be like an uplifting one.
Yeah.
Like when he cuts Bill Murray's brakes, like, that's right in the middle of that montage.
I love
and
that
Bill
scene.
Murray runs over his bike and all that. Like
I love that slow motion of him walking out of the elevator with the bees.
with the
Yeah. I love that.
great one.
Oh,
I also
my
like I like how Wes Anderson's use of like labeling. He labels a lot of things in weird ways. I forgot what the bees said. I think the bees just said like, what was it Rushmore High School Bees?
High School Bees.
Something like that, or like just labeling. It's just it's weird. It's
no, there's titles everywhere.
It's satisfying.
You're gonna see words everywhere in Wes Anderson films.
Like I didn't know I had OCD until I saw a Wes Anderson film.
I took so many notes on this film because I that's the one I rewatched it last night and I rewatched it 2 weeks ago, so I just can't get enough of it. The last 20 minutes, I'm a sucker for endings, and like all those movies end well, but like in comparison, like Royal Tenenbaums, it's a good ending, but I don't feel like it's a perfect ending, and it doesn't necessarily leave me feeling great. The last 20 minutes of Rushmore, when he needle drops the Cat Stevens song, and as soon as he realizes how he's been and that he wants to transform a little bit and how he wants to get everything together, that last 20 minutes. And it all starts with the montage, and it starts with the Cat Stevens song, With the Wind. And I feel so good when that movie ends.
The whole dance scene at the end.
Yeah.
Is
Well, like
all of
it's a coming of age film, so like but
yeah, exactly.
it's a different kind of coming of age film though, because like usually it changes really what we see a coming of age film to be, because usually a coming of age is like a high school kid, learning, developing as a person, growing up in a sense. But in this film, it was also the adults that kind of grew up, right? It wasn't just Max Fisher. Bill Murray's character, I loved Bill Murray's character in Rushmore. I mean, it was
one
just
of the best
it
characters.
was one of the, it
was great.
It just holds a special place in my heart. I love the scene, Bill Murray's character, despite his success, he hates his life, he hates his kids, he hates his wife.
love the scene. One of the funniest scenes in that film.
We got to talk about the pool scene, right? We're talking about the same scene.
I think we're leading up to that. Pool scene just blew me out of the water, and no pun intended.
The Budweiser shorts, his drink, the cigarette.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And his one young dude. Oh.
I saw an interview that Wes Anderson sees himself really taking a lot from, what was it, The Graduate?
The Graduate. There's a lot of The Graduate in that film.
And that that was kind of one of the things he kind of like wanted to rip off.
Oh, interesting. Bill Murray has a couple lines in this movie that stay with me. So at the intermission, at the end, when he said, "Well, let's hope it has a happy ending," I love that one. And then earlier on, when he tells Max, she's my Rushmore, Max. And I can't tell you how many times as a teacher I've used that to talk to kids about, like, you got to find your Rushmore. Whatever your Rushmore is, just find your Rushmore. And then you have to tell them about Rushmore and such. But it's like with you guys, right? At your age, like figuring out what your Rushmore is going to be is so freaking exciting.
Yeah, that's why this was such a personal film to me. That's why I kind of related a lot to it.
It really, a lot of the film. Yeah, that's the thing with his characters. You could see yourself in like all these little quirks these characters have, even if they're exaggerated. And I love. Back to like Bill Murray's, I think two of the most funniest scenes, the scenes for me that just make me laugh. Like, cause like I could find a film funny, but like you said, where your wife said it about you laughing. This film, there's two scenes in this film that make me like genuinely laugh, and it's the two scenes with Bill Murray and his kids. The first scene in the car where he chokes his kid in the back seat, and the second scene where his kids lock him out and he yells,
Unlock
open the door and lock the door.
I like the scene where they're in the elevator. Bill Murray's got a can of Diet Coke in his front pocket, and he's just pouring liquor in it, and he stuffs it behind, and whatever the blankets behind him. That's just
fantastic.
It's fantastic.
No, every line he does, like when he checks into the hotel, like everything he does is funny, even though it's tragic.
Yeah, it's kind of that like bittersweet. Another great character.
Sorry, go ahead.
Bad.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say just another great character, Rosemary. Just kind of like the voice of reason between. Yeah. But it goes without saying that Rosemary had her trauma as well. Yeah. She's still dealing with her husband. She can't really get over him, and
she's being faced by these two. They're both very different ages, but they both act the same age.
There was that scene where Max is in her bed, or her dead husband's bed, and she says something like, you two are perfect for each other. You guys both act like children. Yeah.
But she realizes it's fake blood. It's so amazing. This movie is so amazing that it feels like it should be inappropriate, but it never feels inappropriate.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about Bottle Rocket, with whether it's an Owen Wilson influence or not. It's such a sweet movie with genuine laughs. It's hard not to root for everybody. And then you got just little characters like Max's dad is he's the perfect father. Yeah, he's the perfect dad.
That's so sweet. The character, like, I love all the small characters in the background. They're so sweet, and
they're so well planned, so well written that he goes into detail writing all his characters. Like a character.
The next film we're gonna talk about really goes into that.
The characters that are on screen for maybe one or two scenes, he really goes into depth with them.
And how about his arch nemesis? He gets him apart in his play. Yeah. How is he in your freaking play, right? That was sweet.
It was.
You shot him with a BB 10 seconds previous.
I want to talk about the visuals in Rushmore too, because that kind of set up what was gonna be Wes Anderson's style pretty much for the rest of his career.
Did Yeoman shoot this one? I think he shot all of his films.
He shot all of his films after working with him. What's it called?
That's the point though, because Bottle Rocket does not feel the same or look the same as these other movies.
But you can still see kind of
beginning.
Yeah, where his beginnings are. I want to talk about in Rushmore. There was this scene where he's talking to Rosemary. Max is talking to Rosemary, where they have the fish, and they're in the windows. And I forgot where I heard about this, but it was kind of where they were talking and they were kind of in the same window frame, and then she brings up her husband, and then they're in two different window frames, kind of showing a barrier between them. And I don't know if that's reading a little too deep into it, but I feel like Wes Anderson does a lot of weird stuff like that.
He uses that a lot.
And I feel like Rushmore was his kind of that's where he was setting the trend, where he was really starting to get in touch with how
I'm always in awe of people who not only see, they recognize those things. So for the normal film goer, which is me, I see it, and I know I like it, but I don't necessarily articulate it or recognize, what I mean? I see it and I feel it, but I can't articulate it. And then someone points it out and you're like, ooh, that's so cool. Like what you just described, I had not thought of that, but now I can see it in my head.
Yeah. That's where a lot of criticism for Anderson comes, that people are like, you're taking away from the characters by making such a complicated visual piece. But I feel like Anderson's visuals are kind of like a tool that he uses to convey the emotions that the characters are going through.
And it seems like a simple thing. When you make a film, visuals are important, but not many, because I think it really started, I don't know if it started, but the two people really brought it out that showed you could use framing and visuals aren't just something to make your films look pretty, because you see it in Scorsese and Orson Welles' films, especially Citizen Kane and stuff. It's framed in a way the framing kind of works as an actor itself. You know,
Yeah.
it's like a plot device, and I think Wes Anderson does that as well.
Yeah, his use of lighting and framing, they're all just things that drive kind of like the emotion that the characters have.
And you see that a lot in Royal Tenenbaums.
Royal Tenenbaums is great.
I want to talk about Royal Tenenbaums.
You want to talk about Royal
I want
Tenenbaums?
to talk about Royal Tenenbaums. We gotta
Alright.
rank Rushmore.
So yeah, let's rank Rushmore. I want to ask you what you think, Sain.
So Rushmore is my A+ Wes Anderson film. It's the first one I saw. It's me like re-falling in love with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
It's just, and I just think it's great. I think it's great regardless of where you put it within his filmography, because it's the one that's still genuinely, to me, the sweetest and the funniest, and that's a great combo. So to me, it's and it does it. It's the beginning of he put it all together with that film,
So
and then he's off and running.
yeah. So would you say it's S tier?
S tier is like the highest.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
A tier.
Sure.
S tier?
Whatever the highest is.
Oh, I think it's kind of an A tier.
I have it in in between S and A.
Yeah, I
So
kind of.
either one would, like, it could go either one. I'd be like, yeah, it belongs there. Because Rushmore is,
It's just.
I
great.
think, even compared to his, all this filmography, I think Rushmore is just a great film overall.
It's so like for me though, like there comes a point where I think he's going up, and then it levels, and then it starts its climb down, and the climb down is still really good. I just love early Wes Anderson.
Yeah. I think. I mean, are we all comfortable giving it an S?
I give it an S. I think it's like I think it's a nearly flawless film.
It is. I think we're going with S then.
And by the way, nearly a flawless film at like 98 minutes.
Yeah,
That's hard
it's a
to do.
relatively short.
Yeah.
It's a relatively short film. So yeah, I think Rushmore, we're giving that an S tier.
I need to check into my placing real quick because the next film we're gonna talk about, I need to understand. No, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. I'm excited to talk about.
Okay, so next one we got to talk about, that's Royal Tenenbaums.
Royal Tenenbaums. Who wants to start?
I think you should start.
Well, Royal Tenenbaums. So, it's this film about Gene Hackman. He's going into his. I'm gonna let you do the synopsis because I'm just gonna ramble about it.
I want you to do a synopsis.
All right. So basically, Gene Hackman, he goes in, his Royal Tenenbaum, goes back with his family, or family, mostly his ex-wife.
He's
They
divorced.
were they divorced?
They were divorced.
And
Yeah, and then so basically goes back with her, pretends that he's dying. One of the funniest scenes of that film
Is when
where he
they
says he's
find out.
dying, and then he says, "I'm not actually dying."
Wait, yeah.
And Angelica Houston slaps him across the face, and that was a real slap. Apparently, like she didn't hold
Really?
back with that one. And I think that's a great scene. And so yeah, and then it's like a chain reaction. The whole family kind of just ends back up. This damaged family that very obviously they all just have problems with each other. They all end up back in the same house, including Owen Wilson, who's the dude next door. Kind of finds his way back.
Yeah, he wasn't even part of the family. He was
Yeah.
kind of just.
And there's that
always
great
wanted to be
scene.
though.
Yeah, there's that great line where I always wanted to be a Tenenbaum, and Royals were like,
Yeah.
me too. That's
Right.
incredible. And then that I forgot his name, but he's in Bottle Rocket, he's in Rushmore, and he's in Royal Tenenbaums. He's the the elevator dude, or he's kind of
Right.
like yeah,
He's that guy. Yeah.
he's Royal's like side man, and everything. And when he stabs him before he gets in the taxi,
By the way,
he is
Rushmore.
he's great.
best film or best play ever, man.
best play ever, man.
I loved him in Bottle Rocket.
Bottle Rocket.
I think that was like my favorite, just seeing him in Bottle Rocket.
And I just so Royal Tenenbaums is a film about this damaged family trying to find some peace together, but what they really do is just everything comes flooding back
Yeah.
in, and at the end, things sort of make up. But Royal Tenenbaums is not my favorite Anderson film, but it's definitely
Really?
an Anderson film that makes me. It's one of his more. I'm gonna explain. It's one of his more. I think it's his longest. pretty sure Royal Tenenbaums is his longest film, hitting like 2 hours or something.
It's like an hour 40.
Hour 40 something. I think it's his longest film, and I think it works for the Royal Tenenbaums.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I really like Richie Tenenbaum.
Richie Tenenbaum's a great character.
That is Luke Wilson's character. I just love. I mean, you know, the Tenenbaum, they have 3 children. Or they were in the beginning of the film. It shows them as children, but then
Margot was
we see him.
adopted. And that's
Yeah,
what
Margot
keeps
was
over and
adopted.
over.
Was Marco adopted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they
I
make that
wonder.
point clear in
I
the
don't
movie?
know. I
it's
don't know
made
if you guys caught that part, but she's adopted.
Just adopted.
I love that scene where she puts on her first play
Oh, yeah.
at her birthday party.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he gives an honest review.
Yeah, it gives an honest review, kind of like we're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richie Tenenbaum. I just loved his character so much. You know, basketball. I mean, not basketball. Sorry,
Tennis.
you had me thinking about basketball. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
A tennis star as a child. You know, he grows up, becomes washed up. I think who called him washed up in the film? I think it was like Margot.
They say he choked. That's how his dad described it.
And I don't, he
Mel-
was just such an interesting character. You know, he professes his love to his stepsister, and it all just goes downhill from there too.
downhill.
There's a lot of factors that just cause everything to go downhill.
And that's why I think it being a longer film for Wes Anderson works in its favor. Because there's so much in this film, and it's not like most Anderson films tend to be, you know, that one note kind of way, and then there's, you know, a few that, you know, are more in depth with what it's telling. I think Royal Tenenbaums is one of them.
Because you got like 4 different like storylines just going at the same time. You know, all these people have their different lives.
Rushmore is Max's movie, and then Olivia and Murray, right? They're in, and they're definitely huge. But this one, like Hackman is the main character, I guess, but barely.
I feel like every person in that film,
Is main
like that's
character.
their story. Like I feel that's
The
their
family
story, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's called the Royal Tenenbaums, you know,
Yeah.
because it's Royal's story kind of, but it's kind of all that whole family
It's
story.
just the
together.
Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Bill Murray.
and then, yeah.
I like what you said on your synopsis there, Brody. And this, I think, hits a lot of his damaged, right?
Yeah. They're very damaged.
And that's
Well,
my bad.
damaged family. It's perfect word choice.
Yeah, and that's a trend also. You know, Wes Anderson with his damaged characters. You know, obviously in Rushmore we got the damaged, 3 damaged individuals. In Bottle Rocket, it's not so much. Bottle Rocket feels weird, just because it's very odd. You know, that's not how people act really.
Royal Tenenbaums is the real, at least I think it's probably the realest he got to how people
Well, that's
act.
going into how I said, like, it's kind of like people, these characters who are so quirky and like not real, but they're being played like so real that it just, you're like, it kind of feels like
Feels real.
It feels real.
Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier. They're played on that singular note, and they all have their thing. But like, who can identify with like Gwyneth Paltrow character on, you know, feeling whether they're adopted or not? You're just feeling like you're not part of it, right? That maybe you're not as special as someone else. Like if you have siblings, you know what that feels like, and regardless of how eccentric she might be, we can still identify with that.
And I think that's a big thing. That's a great storytelling technique. How you see that, you know, it's obvious Margot Tenenbaum doesn't feel in place with a lot of things, and then there's that whole montage of showing everywhere she's been, you know, everyone she's been with.
Yeah.
And it really just shows how out of place, you know, she feels. That,
And-
you know, she goes out and tries to find some type of place to, you know, she belongs.
And it's the same thing
very
with
whatever.
what's his name? Is it Chaz Tenenbaum? Kind of how, you know, I mean, a kid buying real estate at like 13 years old.
Right? Yeah.
You know, he was kind of had that relationship with his father, you know, that really weird relationship. And so I feel like because he had such a, you know, weird relationship with his dad, he kind of tried being a different kind of dad. You know, he was like this like overprotective. His wife died in a plane crash.
That's why I think there's so many aspects in this film that go together.
Yeah. What I like as it compares to, say, Bottle Rocket is he's incredible of whether you come from privilege or not, that our issues are the same. And I think his movies do that because some of his characters are well-to-do and others aren't. And it doesn't really matter that we're all screwed up regardless.
Yeah.
I like how you say privilege because like in Bottle Rocket, Anthony's like a more, well-off, wealthy person than was it Dignan, but they still have like the same, we're both on the same kind of like road.
On another tangent on that, I saw a recent study. This affluent school in somewhere upstate Washington is dealing with all this stress, and they had a suicide rash. And you're like, this doesn't look like it would be the place, but the amount of stress they were dealing with, like they interviewed all these kids, and it does not matter where you come from. Yeah. Stress is real, problems are real, inadequacy is real, isolation is real. All these things are real regardless.
I like the way he said no matter where you come from, we're all just screwed up.
Yeah.
We're all just, we're here and we have to deal with it. And I think Royal Tenenbaum shows that.
How much baggage do you have? That's really the amount. Like we all have baggage. It's just, and that's like as a parent, 2 kids. I'm like, I know I screwed them up a little. I just hope I didn't screw them up a little.
It's really kind of like, we're all in the same race, just some people are on a different lap. I think it's just a good way to put it.
I think Royal Tenenbaum shows that, like, as a parent, no matter what you do, you're going to mess up somewhere, you know? And you see with, the way Ben Stiller's character raises his kids compared to the way his father raised him. And you could see those both dynamics. They're trying to do something. They're both doing something. But, it's, no one's a flawless person. And
I think it also shows that it's a lot easier to be a grandpa than a father. Yeah. Because Gene Hackman he's awesome, right?
Yeah.
As a grandfather,
takes his grandkids to go see dog fights and.
Yeah, but like they're living life, right? They're doing things.
The Simon Paul song with the montage going on.
Oh yes, thing. Exactly. It's the me and Julio down by the schoolyard, right?
Yeah.
Garfunkel. Yeah, that one. That's awesome. But there's also a hint in it where maybe he wasn't as bad as everyone points out. I think sometimes we're like, oh, my father was awful or my parent was awful. And the hint that I had is that game room they had when they're in the closet, right?
Yeah.
That indicate that they used to play games together. Yeah. At least that's that's to me, that's what I read into that. So maybe he wasn't quite as bad. I don't know.
It's kind of the whole thing with Richie Tenenbaum. Like he had probably the most normal relationship with Gene Hackman's character out of the 3 kids. I'm wondering why. I didn't pick that up because I picked up that they had a better relationship, but what indicated that?
Because you have that scene where they're playing with BB guns and he shoots him. He's like, "You're on my team," I don't know. I think it's kind of just. Do you think they were all kind of like competing? Kind of
yes.
like in like their.
It's very obvious that they were competing.
Their success. He was a successful tennis player from a young age. Kind of like trying to have like the glory. Now that he doesn't have the glory anymore, he's kind of. And you also see that because, what's his name? Luke Wilson's character. He was kind of trying to. He was the one being by his father's bedside when he was, dying. He was the one being there the most. And I don't know, I just thought that was interesting.
Well, it comes up later, right, in the Darjeeling, where you got 3 brothers. They're on the train. You see the competition that they had for their parents. So talk about an ongoing theme there too.
Yeah. I love that scene where he gets caught with the medication. Danny Glover calls him out for the
Tic Tac.
Yeah, Tic Tacs. Danny Glover is great in this film. Yeah, I love him in that film. And Angelica Houston.
I love that scene where they started arguing. Where I don't know what he said.
Were they in the kitchen?
Yeah, and he's like, "Are you trying to take my wife away from me?" or something like that. And that was a good scene. It was really funny though.
It was funny with a lot of dark moments.
With a lot of dark moments.
And I think again that's because of Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
This movie you talk about earlier about talking about second viewings. I can't remember if we talked about that on air or off air, but I just recently had my second viewing of this. So I watched it originally in the theater, and I hadn't seen it since. And man, did I love it this time.
Yeah.
I remember liking it, and now I love it.
Yeah,
so,
I loved it.
Yeah,
And
it's definitely my second. Not to give it too much away, but nothing will ever pass Rushmore for me. But this is number 2.
I have a very special place with this film. I think this was my third. My first Wes Anderson film was Fantastic Mr. Fox in theaters, but when I finally got into Wes Anderson, Rushmore was the first one. I think this was the second one, and this film not only, made me want to dive more into Wes Anderson's work, it also introduced me to who easily became one of my favorite artists of all time. It was Elliott Smith, and one of my favorite scenes in this film was the film that was tracked with Needle in the Hay with Elliott Smith, Richie Tenenbaum's bathroom scene. And not only do when I think about this film, I think about how great it is, but I think about how, this film introduced me to who became one of my favorite artists of all time. And that scene alone was a dark scene, especially for Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
I think it's that whole scene of when he walks to the bathroom and then rush him to the hospital. That whole thing was just
beautiful scene. I mean that's one of the reasons why Richie Tenenbaum is probably like my favorite character in the film, just because how like deep it gets. Like it's the deepest Wes Anderson has gotten, and I don't know, it's great.
And the scene after is the one that gets me, is when he goes, "Do you want to see my stitches?" And she says yes. Like most people would say no, right?
Yeah.
But like that's the genuineness of like, no, I want to know how deep this goes. Like that whole thing. Yeah. No, I'll see him. And then she's appalled, of course, and heartbroken by it. But yeah, that's tough stuff.
The whole confrontation scene in the little tent with the Rolling Stones songs playing.
Yes.
I think that film, more than anything else, just does the characters in them and the way the characters interact with each other feels so genuine. Especially, even for, maybe it's because, it's a Wes Anderson film, but, for a Wes Anderson film, they feel so genuine, they feel like there's a personal level to each confrontation these characters have with each other, and they all... Because it's such a big film, it's a long film, there's a lot of characters in it, but every character in that film, they feel, there's something there, like it feels confrontational. You feel in that confrontation they all have with each other. And I think that's why
and then you redemption quality into it, right?
Yeah, and they have these arcs, they start out one way and they get bigger, they have those redemption qualities by the end.
I have not looked at this, but I'm assuming that this is, as far as critics go, this is his probably number 1, is it not, or no?
I think it's his number 1 most rated film, I think so.
Yeah.
Critic-wise, or I think French Dispatch is at this point now,
Yeah,
but before that, I think it was either Budapest or Tenenbaums.
I think it was probably Budapest. Another thing I want to point out is kind of like the change in production value that happens, progressing in his filmography. Because one thing, when I look at the what you brought up about the game room, kind of like, oh, he has all those games, and they look like worn, and they look like they've been used. That's something that really gets me with Anderson films. It's just that it looks real, because
I almost those games came from his client. Like he went to his house and put him in the van and drove him to the set.
Yeah, it just looks real. Like it looks like people have played with those games. Like family moments have happened.
Those his movies are so. You guys talking about how personal. Generally, Wes Anderson and I are about the same age, and so it's always interesting when Richard Linklater same way, and so the things that they experience and the characters they write are my age, right? So it takes on a whole nother personal level when that happens. So like that game night in the 70s and 80s, that's what we did, right? There was that's how we passed time. That's how we did family time. Is we're gonna either VHS started having movies, and then Operation. Did you guys ever play Operation? That game.
I played Operation.
So I still remember playing that.
It'll be interesting to see like who the the people in like the film industry will be as we grow up, Because
there's going to be a handful of people, right, that you grow up with.
Mm.
You don't know who they are yet.
Yeah, and I mean it's just an interesting thing seeing, you know, their work progress and see their work getting better. You know, I'm sure that was like an experience for you, you know, seeing kind of like how Anderson. Like, I don't know if you grew up watching Wes Anderson films.
Yeah, it's like you said, he saw Royal Tenenbaums in theaters. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he, so we're around the same age, but so I think it was Rushmore like 98, I think. So at that point, 25-ish, right? So a little older than Max, obviously, but it's in my 20s, I probably had my least film obsession because I was so dang busy, and I was obsessed early, like when I was your age, but then I got obsessed later too. But I had like a 10-15 year window, probably between like 95 to 2010, where working, raising kids, where it wasn't as much, if that makes sense. But then you go back and you see all the films the first time, but you don't necessarily revisit them.
Yeah.
Or you don't enough.
Interesting. So, I mean, obviously, Royal Tenenbaums, great movie overall. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. Where do you guys think it falls on the rankings?
A. I think A is a pretty, for me at least, because I think it's a great film.
I kind of see it almost as an S, in my opinion.
I think it's right up there. Wherever you guys want to tier that sucker.
No, you got to be the tiebreaker, Sain.
S then.
Okay, I got you.
Don't ask me twice.
Watch all of these films just fall in the S category, and Bottle Rockets alone in the C.
We can't let that happen.
No, but yeah, Royal Tenenbaums.
I definitely have some mid-tier Anderson movies.
That's what I'm afraid about. I feel like my top tier Anderson films are going to be the ones that you guys, I don't know, but we're about to get into it right now with the next film, which is The Life Aquatic.
Before we do that, it reminds me, like, this is where I stand. This is my official Wes Anderson stance, my official Wes Anderson take. I was dating this one girl, and she had a sister, and the sister was just a breath of fresh air, because she was like just a complete oddball, right? And we went and saw the three of us happened to catch a movie one night. I think it was called Big Night, a Stanley Tucci movie, kind of an independent film. And I didn't really dig it. And then afterwards, I remember the three of us kind of having coffee or something. And she's like, look, anything different is good. Anything unique is good, because you got it. I'm so tired of this, rubbish of just the same old thing. That's where I'm with Anderson. Even his bad is really good. And so I don't dislike any of it. It just means though that some of them I prefer more. That's my official stance.
Yeah. So we want to talk about Life Aquatic now? Because, so, I think, universally, or I shouldn't say that, for the most part, Life Aquatic, I believe it's his most disliked film. It's either, I think it's Life Aquatic. I might be wrong about that, but I think it's Life Aquatic. And
I think Bottle Rocket is most disliked.
Oh, yeah, but, his more developed films, in his filmography, I think Bottle Rocket tends to be the one people don't really like.
And I imagine this one probably disappointed people, because now they're like, they got two movies they love, they've seen them, and then you've waited 2-3 years on this one.
Yeah. And it's a different, Owen Wilson didn't write this one. He's in this, but he didn't write it. I think this is his Noah Baumbach type of era when he came in and started co-writing with him. And I think you see it, because I don't know if you guys are, dove into Noah Baumbach's films. I know you've seen Marriage Story.
Yeah.
But you see a lot of his elements in this film, and I think you could. I bought the vinyl. I think anything. The soundtrack. It's a beautiful looking vinyl.
I think I'm covering it.
But it's a beautiful soundtrack. I think we could agree that the soundtrack is one of Anderson's best put together soundtracks. You know, Seo George's covers of the Portuguese covers of David Bowie tracks. It's great stuff. And I think Life Aquatic was around the 5th or 4th Anderson film I've seen. And I love the Life Aquatic. I'll just say I love the Life Aquatic. I love it. I love that film. I've seen it like 3 times.
It's a beautiful vinyl.
I watched it on the first time. I thought, okay, maybe I hyped myself up for it too much. You know, I watched it the second time. I was like, I still like it. I watched it the third time for this podcast. I still just think it's a wonderful film. And I find so much little beauties in this film. I could see where people come from when they don't like it. It's not as comedic. I find it funny, but it's not, you know, as... It has a different type of humor than, you know, films like Rushmore had. And I think its characters are... There's so many characters. I think one of my favorite characters of all Wes Anderson films is in... Like, it's Bill Murray in Rushmore, but it also has to be Willem Dafoe in Life Aquatic. I love his character in this film. And... Again, a beautiful soundtrack. I think it's a beautiful story. There's so many beautiful scenes, like the scene where they find the fish, and it's going around the tank, it's a little submarine. I find Life Aquatic to be just a beautiful film.
Brody's just going off about this movie.
I love this. I love the Life Aquatic.
Brody, do you like this movie?
I don't think he does.
Let me think about that. I think I like this film. Angelica Houston is great in it too.
Yeah, she's good.
You know, another impressive cast as well.
And the cast is great. There's so many small characters in this film, and it's so weird. There's this whole sequence where pirates take over the submarine and everything, and I'm like, you know, but it works for me. Like I'm on board with this. You know, I'm fine with anything that happens in this film, especially Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. That's another thing about how Wes Anderson just tackles like these different kind of stories to tell, and with his same kind of like theme, he's very true to his art.
I mean, you see it a lot here with that whole theme of this dude, you know, this very insecure person, you know, trying to prove something. You see that in Life Aquatic.
Yeah.
And you still have the father-son thing. Like
yeah,
you're going to have the father-son thing pop up.
There's that funny scene where they're in the water and Owen Wilson's like, may I refer to you as dad? And Bill Murray's like, no. It's a great movie. I like the Life Aquatic.
How are your feelings, Sain?
It's the hardest rewatch for me, and but that's kind of where I earlier what I was saying. Like it's still beautiful, it's still awesome, but I don't feel it as much. Where Rushmore hits me in every fiber.
I wonder if he likes Rushmore.
I wonder if it's Rushmore.
This one, it just kind of, no pun intended, but it just kind of floats by me.
That makes sense. And I noticed that I like his more, you know, I like this era of Anderson. And you're going to see more when we talk about the next film, which I won't give much of how I feel about that film just yet. But I like the darker era. I don't want to say darker, but the more emotional era of Wes Anderson. And I think... And a lot of critics and such didn't, especially with this film. That's why I said I think this film is like one of his most... I think it has a lower score on Rotten Tomatoes than Bottle Rocket.
Did you give your synopsis of this film?
So basically, Bill Murray plays this, you know, Steve Zissou, and he's like this, you know, he's just like, he does documentaries about the ocean. There's a word for it. Oceanographer or something like that. And he does these little documentary films about it, and one day his friend, his coworker, dies. He gets eaten by this creature. So he, you know, goes out and revenge, tries to find this fish. And one of the most beautiful scenes is when they find the fish and they just float around, and then he starts crying. Everyone puts his hand on his shoulders. And it's a great cast. Yeah, Willem Dafoe. One of the funniest scenes in this film is when they're choosing teams and Willem Dafoe's like you never chose me, or you never choose me. And he walks away. And yeah, it's just this film about this dude trying to prove something, because you see that he's losing everything, you know, and he's not a good father. He lost his wife. He's losing, you know, he's trying to reinvent himself, you know, like most Wes Anderson characters, and this is just another example of that.
And I think that's where ultimately it happens for me is maybe I just don't feel the redemptive quality within the Bill Murray character as much.
Yeah, I think that's that. You know,
hack character.
I think that's why. I don't know why, but I'm like that's another reason. Because I think it ends, but nothing's really resolved. Because Owen Wilson, you know, we could say spoilers on here, right? I don't think, yeah. So Owen Wilson dies. You know, his character dies. He loses someone else, and you know, at the end of it, you know, one of the best needle drops. You know, I won't give my list away, but you know, Queen Bitch by David Bowie, that ending scene where it plays out, it's incredible. And but it kind of just ends on the same note, not the same note it began, but it kind of ends at the like where nothing really resolved itself. And that I could see that being a turnoff for most people, but for me, it just felt real. It felt emotional, and that's why, for me personally, I felt so much from this film.
It's interesting because you're right, and with endings. I was talking about Rushmore. I thought it had the perfect 20-minute ending there, and there's a sweetness to it. But if you feel a realness to this one, then that's cool, right?
Yeah.
Like not everything has to end happily. I guess I just prefer when it does.
That makes sense, yeah.
Or maybe it just stays with me and makes me feel better. That's not necessarily Anderson's job to do that, though.
But see, like a film like Rushmore, you could rewatch over and over again. I can see Life Aquatic not being something you could like put on as much as Rushmore.
Yeah. Maybe that's all it boils down to.
Yeah. So
this one,
where do you think you put this one, Sain?
That's just above Bottle Rocket for me personally.
What about you?
I'm gonna, we're gonna make this a ratio. Hold on, I need to make, because I think I have it under, I have it under Tenenbaums, but so B or A for, like, either, I'll be fine with either one.
Dead middle, BA.
Man.
Because personally I put it S, but, like, I know that's not,
I've heard a lot of people have that same opinion, Birdie. I mean, I've heard mixed things about it. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think
I don't understand the hate part unless you're comparing it. I don't know how you can hate a Wes Anderson movie.
Me either.
Well, we did look at the Letterboxd reviews, and we had a handful of people.
Yeah, it has a 56% Rotten Tomatoes, and I think Bottle Rocket has like a 60. So I think Life Aquatic. Yeah, Bottle Rocket has an 85. So Life Aquatic is his most disliked. Yeah. Life Aquatic is his most disliked film.
Interesting.
I think, we're talking about Scorsese earlier. My main film reviewers in the 80s, Siskel and Ebert, they didn't like The Color of Money. Have you guys seen that one?
I haven't.
I've heard of it, though.
It's the one with Tom Cruise, right?
It's Tom Cruise, Paul Newman. Freaking movie's incredible. But compare it maybe to other Scorsese. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But I think that's what you get in trouble sometimes when you don't review something as a standalone. When you want to like, oh, this isn't as good as this. I don't know. Because it's still good.
So I'd be fine with either B or A. I'd be fine with that. It's not where I'd put it, but I'd like be fine with it. The next one I'm not going to be fine with. I'm ready to talk about the next one.
All right.
Well, put it on there. Guys, what are you doing?
I don't know, man. Let's
just put it in B.
I'll hit it with the B. I'm thinking B. How do you feel about that scene?
Well, I'm fine with it, but you're the one standing next to Jason right now. Pour coffee on your head or something.
All right. So
all right. I guess that's fair. All right. So what's next?
Darjeeling Unlimited.
Sain, you want to talk about that one?
So I never saw this one. I watched this one 3 weeks ago for the first time, and it skyrocketed up for me.
Nice.
And we got three brothers traveling by train through India to go. Two of the brothers don't know this, but they're going to go see their mother after the passing of their father, and it's their kind of coming to grips with his death, with their childhood. Kind of reconnecting to each other. They all have their own thing, personality quirks, and love it. All right, you go.
I'm really glad you said that, because again, this is like, I think it has a 60 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's very decisive between audience, especially critics, but I love this film. Like more so than Life Aquatic, more so than, I'm not gonna give it away, but Darjeeling Limited is like one of my favorite films of all time. And when I first watched it, it was on my Wes Anderson, binge, which was I think 3 years ago or something. It was before high school. And I watched Darjeeling Limited, and I felt so emotional from it. And I don't know why, but I felt such a connection to it. And then I rewatched it again for the podcast, and I knew exactly why I did. I started crying by the end of this film. And I watched Hotel Chevalier, the short film that before this one, I decided to play it with it. And I think, I relate a lot to this film. Not just the characters, but this entire film, what it stands for, what it means, and the themes within it. And the whole... I don't know. So this film, it has this special place in my heart, and I think a big reason is about the way it deals with relationships within family, even more so than Royal Tenenbaums, because this one's about three brothers. The father isn't there. You see the mom for a little while, but the most of the film takes place with these three brothers, where you learn so much about their family just from those three brothers and their trip on this train and everything, the way they act. You see Owen Wilson's insecurities again, trying to be a leader, everything needs to be in control, everything needs to be perfect and whatnot. You see Adrian Brody's doesn't really care, but he has a very deep connection with his father, the father that it's very divisive how they feel about their father. And then you got Jason Schwartzman, who's confident yet just as scared, and just as I think you see a lot of that in the short film Hotel Chevalier that I don't know if it was played in theaters before it, but it's it's called the Darjeeling Limited Part 1. And so I decided to watch it with it, and you see a lot of Jason Schwartzman's character, the way he kind of treats people and the way he treats, his relationships, and how he just doesn't find anything within them. And these characters are, something like The Life Aquatic, it's dark. I think Darjeeling Limited is probably his darkest film, and because there's some really intense scenes in this film. But I think at the end of it, it's a very emotional and it's a very powerful film, especially for Anderson, and I think that's why I love it. And the soundtrack on this is great. It's
incredible, isn't it?
The montage with the Play with Fire montage around the end is incredible. The opening sequence where you see Bill Murray for the little 1 minute we see Bill Murray. They're running, and then This Time Tomorrow by the Kings plays in. Probably my favorite intro. My opening sequence to a film is definitely the Darjeeling Unlimited. I just love it. And its locations that he uses in India and whatnot, they're beautiful. He uses these sets, and he uses this on location sets so beautifully. And I think, especially for someone who relies so much on studio sets and stuff, he uses these on location sets, and he uses them so beautifully. And there's so many.
To the point you wish this train existed, right?
Yeah.
And if it did, you would hop on this train in a heartbeat and just take this adventure with your brothers or with your friends. You were talking about the connection to it. So I've seen French Dispatch once. I've seen this movie once. I can't wait to see this movie again because I felt that immediate connection to it. With French Dispatch, I respected it and I liked it, but the connection piece isn't there. It doesn't mean it's not great. Yeah. But this is the one that feels real and feels personal. I'm the youngest of three brothers. Yeah. And so it just immediately hit me. Yeah.
And so I won't go too much into it, but I'm the youngest of four brothers, and a lot of our childhood has been very separated for different reasons. And so watching this film, it reminds me a lot of my brothers and the way that we act around each other. And I see ourselves in this film because there's a lot of distance between all three of them. And even Owen Wilson, who tries to, bring them together, even there's a distance between him and them. And I really find this film just a beautiful film, and I love it. And I think me personally would put this on the S tier of the Anderson.
That's another thing that Anderson does a lot is for some reason trios is a big thing with him.
Oh yeah.
You've got Rushmore, the love triangle, if you would call it that.
Bottle Rocket.
You got Bottle Rocket, the three and the gang. Royal Tenenbaums, the three kids. and then you got this film. I don't know. It's weird.
He has something about that.
You got something.
And
Lucky
the color
number.
yellow.
And the color yellow.
He likes that color.
No, and I was thinking about this earlier. So people who don't have a Wes Anderson connection, that's cool, right? Because a lot of his movies, I think you can say that they're visually stunning. And if you remember when we walked out of the French Dispatch, they were kind of those two guys were kind of breaking it down, right?
Yeah.
As far as stylistically, and so you can just not be connected to the themes of his film and still appreciate them as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. But I just appreciate the fact that he sticks to his themes, much like Scorsese does.
Yeah, he's true to his art, for sure.
Yeah, and so he's like, that's why when you become attached to an author, to a band, to a filmmaker, it's so special. You don't have to connect to all of them, but I'm just glad that there's a few of them in my life that I know that every time they come out with something, there's a chance they're going to tell a story that is my story. I love that.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, well-received film, obviously.
Between
I think-
us, it's what was.
Yeah.
I don't know about critics.
Well, I mean, you really can't
not much other people.
You can't really look at critics' review and take them.
Yeah, I stopped.
Yeah.
Look, I don't look at Rotten Tomatoes anymore. I used to be big on that for whatever reason, but now I just see a film if I want to see a film.
Because I mean, when you look at critic reviews, they don't really. I feel like they just take it for kind of see it as like. I feel like they drain the life out of their reviews. Because like with us, we're reviewing it based on, our own passion towards filmmaking and our own passion towards storytelling, and like relating it to our own lives and seeing it through that lens. It's different, because I feel like film reviewers review movies like they're like a robot,
Are you guys connected to any film reviewer? Is there someone you listen to?
I don't.
Well, it's weird with me. There's certain people I do, but then they're also like, it's here and there, because some people I'll listen to because I find them just entertaining, but then other people that like I would read a review from, and it's usually I use this app called Letterboxd, and I think it works a lot better than IMDb or something because the people you follow are the reviews that get shown, and these are real people, they're not like they don't get paid for doing this.
Yeah.
And they're on this, and I follow these people, and they, we're, mutual friends, and some people I talk to in real life, some people I don't. I just follow them for the reviews, and I think I like that. I don't know who they are, but I know their account. Yeah. And I like reading what they have to say, and I'm like, oh yeah, even if I don't agree with it, I find some purpose within it, and I think. So I don't have like a reviewer that I stick to, but I have like these people, that just happen to review films.
Well, film review is a really broad thing because you also have YouTube channels like Dead Meat.
Oh yeah, like Dead Meat.
Like it's not really. I mean, like he gives his opinion on different films, but like it's almost like an admiration, like these people showing.
I
how
like
they feel.
people who talk about films. I'm not saying I dislike them, but when it comes to like who I respect and who I like will listen to more, I like people will simply talk about film and not necessarily review them.
Yeah.
If that makes
Roger,
sense.
so I grew up on Siskel and Ebert, and those guys really. I'm not the only one. If you grew up in the '80s and you love movies, particularly because of Siskel and Ebert. But Roger Ebert died, 10 years ago, and I was like, oh man, Roger Ebert died. I love that guy. I read him every week. Read his reviews. After he died, there was seriously a void in my life that I didn't realize would be there on his death. He'd been battling cancer forever because I no longer had that person in my life who I trusted about film. And I couldn't believe that there was someone who I've never met before could leave such a personal void in my life. I guess it would be the similar, to Kurt Cobain or John Lennon, or when you're like, what music did we lose? That's how I felt about Roger Ebert film.
I watched a lot of their little segments on films. Like on YouTube, when I look up a film, they'll pop up. I watch it.
Well, that's what you mentioned. They talk about film, and
They talk about
and
film.
they love movies so much, and that's what I think that's what I miss. It's just, and that's why you guys, I love listening to you guys because you just love movies.
Yeah.
That's really refreshing and cool.
All right, so we kind of went off the rails a little bit.
First, let's rank Darjeeling. I think, do we all say it's an S? Are we fine with just putting it up there? Or, Mr. Sain, how do you feel about it?
If we put that on the top S list, those are my top three. Those are my three S's. Nothing else gets up there. Everything else is kind of one tier below for me
I'm
personally.
kind of fine with that. I'm kind of fine.
I
I'm
don't know
personally
about
kind of fine with
that.
that. I'm fine with that one.
I don't know about that one, guys.
That's my take. That's all right.
There's a special little movie, such a little film that I think also deserves some credit.
Ooh, just out of curiosity, which one is it going to be?
With you, it's probably gonna be Fantastic Mr. Fox or French Dispatch.
For me?
Yeah.
No.
Which one?
Oh, I got one more I forgot about.
Yeah.
Damn it. Moonrise Kingdom is up there for me. I don't know where it is for you.
All right, we could always change it. Let's just put it in the A for now.
Okay, we'll put it in
A. We could always change it. All right. So
Yeah, I forgot. I got my top four is so easy.
So let's
And then the fifth one is where I struggle.
let's get into that then. You know, we're like in the middle of his films, so let's just get into our top 5. What do you want to do first? Our needle drops before we get into the top 5?
Yeah, let's do a little needle drop segment, really quick.
All right. Hey, well, boys, I got to go.
All right.
I'm sorry about that. You guys steeping your damn coffee cost me.
That was a rough situation.
All right. So unfortunately, our special guest for today.
If you want, Mr. Sain, you could just text me your list, and I'll read them out for you.
I'm just going to tell you my top 5 right now.
Just tell it. Give it out.
Let's go.
All right. So now this is actually appropriate because now I don't want you guys having abandonment issues for Wes Anderson just because I'm leaving you right now. That's the common theme here. I want you guys to hang tough and know that I'm coming back and I'll see you tomorrow.
It's like Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes, I am royal. More ways than one, right? And
More ways than one.
and I will be back tomorrow. All right, so here's my top 5. The fifth one was really, really a struggle on what I put there. So I'm going Grand Budapest Hotel as my 5. And then I have Moonrise Kingdom as 4, Darjeeling Unlimited 3,
Nice. I like that.
Bombs 2, and Rushmore 1.
That's
and
solid.
the soundtrack
Solid.
of Rushmore, every song in Rushmore is my needle drop.
I like that. The whole soundtrack's from Needle.
Yeah.
The whole soundtrack. And then I would say anytime you throw Simon and Garfunkel into something, then I'm a big fan of that one too. But then I want to say this one thing. With soundtracks, sometimes you hear songs that you love, right? You're like, oh, cool, I love that song. Scorsese does that all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I love about Anderson, and I also love this about David O'Reilly too, is they play music that I've never heard before, and I'm like, oh my God, who is that? What is this song? And in Darjeeling Unlimited, that was the whole soundtrack. It was like, oh my God, what is that? And I ended up just downloading it. So that's something I really appreciate about Anderson, is that, again, even when I don't know the song, I love the song.
Yeah. He uses music so great.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me on, boys.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sain.
Good luck with the rest of the pod.
All right. Unfortunately, I feel a little sad now. I feel a little empty
Yeah, I
in my
feel
heart.
abandoned.
I feel abandoned. I feel betrayed. I feel. Anyway, where were we?
Needle drops.
Needle drops. Okay, you're gonna be mad at me. You might be a little mad at me.
You start from 5 to 1.
Oh, are we with the films?
No, with the needle drop. Unless you didn't rank them. I had mine in my top 5.
Oh, I only have
but-
like my favorite.
Go ahead and give your favorite one.
Favorite. It's just very special. All right, Royal Tenenbaums. Great film.
Royal
You know?
Tenenbaums. I wonder which one it's gonna
I
be.
wonder which one.
I wonder which one it's gonna
You
be.
know,
Does it have with Richie Tenenbaum?
with Richie Tenenbaum.
In
Okay,
the
so
bathroom.
anyway, Royal Tenenbaums. Great film.
Great film.
You know, Richie Tenenbaum. Richie Tenenbaum is a character that just resonated with me for some reason. I just felt like, you know, it was just such a great character. And we have that bathroom scene where he's in the bathroom. Needle in the Hay, L.A. Smith. You know, L.A. Smith, one of my favorite artists
Needle
of
drop,
all
needle in the
time.
hay.
The needle dropped inside of the hay, and it's just such a beautiful scene where he shaves himself. And there's a scene where he just looks down the sink, and there's hair everywhere, and he cuts himself. there's just blood. It's just, it was a very dark scene in the film. You know, a film with, you know, comedy and interwoven within dark scenes, and you know, it felt kind of. It's a feeling that I can't really put into words, but it hit me. It really did. And that needle drop, you know, Mr. Sain probably ranked his needle drops on like what got him up, what made, you know, the film fun for him. But I think this needle drop meant something different to me. It was kind of just what showed emotion in the film the best for me, and I think it was Needle in the Hay, Real Tenenbaums.
It's quite close to my number one. Because so I ranked it out in the 5 list, and so my number 5th one, I have an honorable mention in mind, and that's Aileen by Jarvis Cocker, or Tip Top from the French Dispatch. You know, they're next to the jukebox. The set kind of pulls apart.
That was a good one. I really did
scene.
forget about that.
That was my honorable mention.
Yeah.
But my top 5, my 5th one, I put on the 5th one was because I had to. It was one of my favorite scenes as a child when I first saw it. It was These Days by Nico, when Margot Tenenbaum is walking down from the bus stop in the Royal Tenenbaums, and Richie just staring at her, and everything slows down. That was a great song. Introduced me to Nico. That film introduced me to many artists that I'm now in love with. My number 4th one is obviously Queen Bitch by David Bowie. I decided not to put any of his covers on it because I just thought that wouldn't be fair.
I just think you're a sucker for David Bowie.
Yeah, exactly. But I had to just choose one, so I put him. And that when there was walking away from the premiere of the film at the end of Life Aquatic, Bill Murray's walking with the kid on his shoulders. Beautiful scene. What a great song to end the film with. My 3rd one is Play With Fire, the Rolling Stones, and Darjeeling Limited. I talked about it earlier. I love that montage where we're going across the bus. It was a great song to put that with. Number 2, Needle in the Hay. I'm not going to speak more. I think you said everything that there is to say about that scene. And my number 1, This Time Tomorrow. Again, I talked about it earlier. The Kinks, Darjeeling Limited. I just think that's a great opening scene. It's probably one of my favorite opening scenes ever. And, you know, Bill Murray's running to the train. You see Adrian Brody stop and look at him. Then it goes in slow motion, like every Wes Anderson film does. And the song kicks in, the needle drop. And it's a beautiful scene.
I want to give an honorable mention as well. You know, when Bill Murray's character, when he goes into the pool in Rushmore. That was just a great.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. You know, there's nothing bad to say about that. So those were our needle drops for Wes Anderson films. So Fantastic Mr. Fox is a film. It's an animated film. Wes Anderson. Was it his first animated film?
It was his first animated.
It was Wes Anderson's first animated film. It features Fox.
Stop motion. I don't know, because some people argue if that's animated or not. I think it is. Stop motion's animated.
Yeah, stop motion animation. Yeah. It's about a fantastic Mr. Fox who is a fox, and he's unhappy with himself because it's kind of that same theme where you want to prove
an insecure person trying to prove himself.
He's an insecure. You know, he lives inside of a little den, and he's like, you know, I'm tired of living here. I want to live in a better place. And, you know, kind of like prove more to himself that he lives up to his fantastic self.
It has a lot to do with that because a lot of talk about it is because, you know, they're wild animals, you know, and stuff.
Yeah.
And he does these things because of that.
Yeah. And, you know, he's kind of like, you know, I do this because I'm a wild animal, you know. An abundance of characters with their own problems as well. You know, we have his son, and, you know, his son's just a big character in this, you know.
Different.
He's different, you know. And we have, what's his name?
Christopherson.
We have Christopherson.
Voiced by Wes Anderson's brother.
Wes Anderson's brother also did the artwork for
all the Criterion.
For the Criterions, yeah. That's interesting as well. But anyway, we got Christopherson. I guess kind of like physically and mentally better than.
And then now his kid is becoming insecure and feels he needs to prove himself at something.
And it's kind of we have that scene where they're playing. What is it called? What's their sport they're playing?
Whack-bat or something?
Whack-bat. They're playing whack-bat, and you know, there's that scene where he hits the ball well or whatever. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't understand how that game works, even though they did explain it.
Very weirdly.
But then, yeah, they were like, "Oh, so he is related to your dad." And he's like, "Not by blood." You know, it's just that insecurity that
Jason Schwartzman.
that he has. And, you know, Owen Wilson plays the coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. You can just tell. Oh, yeah, you can't tell though, because like all three of the Wilson brothers.
They have the same voice.
But anyway, it's just a film about you know, feeling like you need to live up to something, and you know, in the beginning he's trying to prove to himself that you know, trying to accomplish things, and then kind of towards the end of the film he's trying to prove to the community that he is.
I think Fantastic Mr. Fox ends quite the same exact way Life Aquatic ends, but in a very different way.
Kind of like,
Because nothing is resolved in
Yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox by the end of it.
I saw kind of like I saw it similar to the way that I saw Grand Budapest Hotel, on how it was kind of that hierarchy kind of thing. I kind of thought it was like a play on kind of capitalism, if you would call it that, because I saw like the farm owners, or the, you know, the rich, you know, the CEO guys, what were their names?
Bingus, Butts, and Beans.
Yeah, Beans.
Something like that.
Bingus, but Bean. You know, they were kind of like dominant over the animals, and it was kind of like that metaphor where they were on top and then the animals were on the bottom, and it was kind of like they just settled for that. You know, it wasn't kind of really like a resolution. It was kind of like all these things happen, all this, you know, effort for it to just settle. And I think that's a good message to tell, because, you know, he's trying to prove to himself and others that he can accomplish things, when at the end it's really just, I don't know what the word is for it. It's kind of just lukewarm.
Lukewarm.
Yeah, it's kind of lukewarm. So, you know, I think the film was great.
It's grateful. It's a very film.
I really like the scene where they're on the motorbike and you have the wolf.
The wolf.
And I don't know. It's just kind of, it was a truly beautiful scene. You know, kind of showing that we're all in the same, trying to survive, you know, together. You know. What do you have to say?
So. I think it's quite an A-tier film.
An A-tier film.
It's quite an A-tier film.
I agree. So, you know, ranking Fantastic Mr. Fox, an A-tier film. I think that's a comfortable place to put it.
Very much, yeah.
You know, seeing it now next to, yeah, I think it's.
Because I still think Darjeeling Limited is.
I think it should be higher up too.
We'll see how it goes. What's next? Moonrise Kingdom?
Moonrise Kingdom. I actually haven't seen Moonrise Kingdom.
You haven't seen it, so I'll make this brief and short for all my Moonrise Kingdom fans out there. So Moonrise Kingdom, these 12-year-olds, I think they're 12 or 13, they run away. This one kid, this little kid, is a nerd, right? And basically, he doesn't have parents, he's adopted or not, and he's part of these this Boy Scouts. And he makes his plan with this girl who has abusive parents, one of them being Bill Murray, the other being Frances McDormand. Great performances, great actors. Bruce Willis is in this for some reason too. And so they make a plan to run away. They both run away to this Moonrise Kingdom, they call it. And it's such a romantic, beautiful, dark film. It involves these two kids, but it still has that adult. What did Mr. Sain describe it as? Like a adult fairy tale.
It's adult fairy tale, yeah.
Even though it's involved these two kids, but it still feels like a more mature fairy tale than, you know, any other romantic story like this. And it's a beautiful told film. You should watch it. I think Moonrise Kingdom is great. It's not one of my favorites. On a rewatch, I found it slightly more, and I feel bad saying this after Mr. Sain, you know, he loves this film. I find it slightly more bland than I remember it being. I still think it's a fantastic film. Like, you know, I don't think Wes Anderson has a bad movie. I think Moonrise Kingdom because I know if Mr. Sain was here, he'd be like, oh, Lunar seems an S.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think it's a B.
I mean, I'm comfortable putting it there.
We're gonna put it in B. I'm sorry,
Put it
Mr.
in
Sain.
You know, it's kind of your fault, Mr. Sain, for leaving. You
That's
know,
true.
if you would have probably been here to fight for it, we probably would have put it maybe A.
I'm putting it in B.
We're putting it B.
Life Aquatics in B, Lunar seems B. I love both of those films. I think Life Aquatics should be higher though, but
Do you think it'd be fair to put Life Aquatic in A and Darjeeling Unlimited in S?
because that's the thing. We have Grand Budapest next to talk about, and where we're gonna put that one.
Grand Budapest Hotel. Our Grand Budapest Hotel is about an author guy, and he comes to this hotel, and we have this guy. His name is Zero, and you know it's kind of him. Just the whole film it's a big flashback, pretty much. And while I think flashbacks are really corny and cheesy, this didn't feel like that. It felt very well structured and very well put together in the way that it was told in Wes Anderson's classic, you know, kind of chapter-like presentation to his storytelling. You know, it's kind of about him accounting how he came to where he is today. You know, a once, you know,
Lobby boy.
successful, you know, a successful running, beautiful, you know, fluorescent hotel that is now, because of war and because of the consequences of war and fascism, is now, you know, a rundown kind of hotel. And it's really a story about how people really don't act until things have gotten bad, you know, like people don't take action until things have gotten bad. And you know, the casting of this film is crazy.
Willem Dafoe is
William
great.
Dafoe. You have William Dafoe. You have
Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody.
What's his name? Ralph Fiennes? Something?
Yeah,
The dude
his
who plays
performance
the-
was amazing.
Great performance.
Like, honestly, okay. So honestly, just a stellar performance by him. I
Performance.
think he takes the cake when it comes to performance.
Saoirse Ronan's in this film. I think that's the first film I remember her being in. She was great in this film, with the chemistry between her and Zero. Great stuff in that film.
Very heartwarming film.
It's one of those
Uh,
more colorful films.
Yeah, it's kind of where, I mean, apart from the French Dispatches, where Wes Anderson gets his most Wes Anderson-esque.
Bill Murray has a cameo in it, right?
Yeah. You also have Jeff Goldblum.
Oh yeah, Jeff Goldblum. You can't remember about Jeff Goldblum. He was
Yeah,
in Life Aquatic. I don't know how we didn't talk about him in that
Yeah,
film.
we didn't,
Yeah, Jeff
actually.
Goldblum.
But I mean, he's more prominent in this film, I feel. Kind of more of a, yeah. You have, you know, Ralph Fiennes, great performance. What's his name? The guy who played Zero. I think it's his first time in a film.
Tilda Swinton
As
with
well.
playing the 100-year-old lady. Tilda Swinton can play any person in any film. She's a great actress. I love her in everything she's in. Especially the French Dispatch. She plays a silly little part in
His name is Tony Revolori. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but I think it is his acting debut. And I think he was a perfect supporting role for
Lobby boy.
for Gustave, you know. So obviously this visually, I think it is great. I think it's beautiful.
Beautiful. Some
Um,
incredible sets in this film.
I really love. So Wes Anderson did this thing where it's kind of split into dates, and the aspect ratio of how it is being filmed is filmed to how it would be filmed the day which the story is set. Like in 1930, it would have a 1930s aspect ratio, stuff like that. I think that is just genius, in my opinion. I really love this film. You know, it follows the lobby boy and how, you know, he is his kind of like mentor. Gustav kind of follows a story about how, you know, the hotel and how they're kind of like living the life while World War II is happening, and they really don't care until it affects them. So you have, I really like this scene, how they used black and white in that film, because they had the part where they were in the train, Zero and Gustav, they were in the train, and you know, let's talk about Gustav real quick, because I really like that character, and
Gustav.
you know, how a lot of people give criticism to Wes Anderson about how he's pretentious and like for the way Gustav talks, but I feel like Wes Anderson did that for his own reasons, you know, because we have Gustav like talking all like Wes Anderson-esque,
like, but he would talk. That character would talk like that.
Yeah, it would talk, especially with the time period, and then you have kind of like parts where you can tell it's like Wes Anderson kind of winking at the audience, where Gustav would be talking and he'd be like, "Oh fuck it," you know.
Yeah,
start,
I love it.
Start doing things like that. You know, there's just great writing. Wes Anderson did the screenplay, right? But I forgot who wrote
think
it.
Roman Coppola and Hugo
Guinness wrote this one.
So this is his Roman Coppola phase.
Yeah.
Hugo Guinness.
And yeah, I just think it was greatly written. The story was amazing. You know, you have that train scene where, you know, it's like lighthearted, then warm colors, and then later when they're in the train and the death squad comes in, and it's black and white. You know, they tear up his ticket, and spoiler alert, they execute Gustav. And I think that's just such a. It hit me.
Yeah.
This story really, I really love this story. You know. And then, you know, we have the painting. We have just a lot in that film. And then towards the end, where you have them back at the hotel, and you know, the author who is talking to this guy with just this big flashback ultimately writes a story about it, which is just amazing, you know? It's just amazing how this story flows and how it's just... I think it's genius, in my opinion. And I think it deserves an S tier. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to agree with that.
I don't agree with that. I remember not liking this film as much as his other works, especially a specific one. But it's because it's kind of the same thing with Fantastic Mr. Fox, where it's like a great film, you know.
It is
like
great.
but it doesn't make it up there for me. That's for a personal reason. But seeing that you and Mr. Sain had it in his 5th place, it sounds like you have it up there.
I have it
somewhere. It's not in my list, but I say an A. It's definitely not below an A.
It's not below an A.
Not below.
I agree with that. I think
it's a very colorful film.
I think for me, it's an S tier with bias because I just love the way it's shot and the way kind of like the characters, I like the acting, I like the cast. So I guess without bias, I would say it'd be in an A tier. So I think I'm comfortable putting that in the A tier.
Isles of Dogs.
Isle of Dogs. How'd you feel about that one? Give us a rundown.
Isles of Dogs, about this group of dogs. The chief, played by Bryan Cranston, has some other dogs, played by Edward Norton, Bill Murray. So I don't know where it took place. I forgot.
I feel like the characters weren't as, you couldn't get really attached to them as some of the other films.
But they're dogs.
But they are cute. Dogs. They are cute dogs.
Bill Murray dog. His name is Bud or something.
Another animated
stop motion. And basically they have this dog flu or whatever, and so they send all the dogs away. And Scarlett Johansson is in here as a dog, and so is Greta Gerwig, and so the cast is great. And I think the story is really great. You know, it's kind of the same way Grand Budapest and Fantastic Mr. Fox work. You know, it's talking about this, you know, system and society and the way they, you know, the overreaction of how they treat a situation, and it kind of starts this authoritarian way when the government finds a problem and the way they handle it. You know, all they're really doing is trying to create more power, and you see that, but they use dogs, and I think it's really well told. I think it's a really great story. I just don't know if it's told in the best way. I think Isles of Dogs is, many people love this film. I like it. I like Isles of Dogs, but it's like, I think in my list, in my ranking, I have it like right above Bottle Rocket.
I agree. I think it's. I mean, it's. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like you said, there's not a bad Wes Anderson.
There's not a bad Wes Anderson,
but it's just not as. I mean, character development is just not as great as some of the other ones.
Like, I think it's better than Bottle Rocket. I think it's a great film.
It is.
Yeah, the whole, like, there's a lot of cliches in it. Bryan Cranston, you know, I know he's a dog, and you know, at the end of the day, you're watching a movie about dogs, you know, and he plays a sheep. He plays I'm a street dog, you know. I'm like, you know, I control my own self and whatnot, and the other one's like, well, I have owners, and it becomes kind of cliche at some points. It's a little repetitive, you know, and that's coming from a Wes Anderson film. You know, all of his films are repetitive, but you know, so when you say a Wes Anderson films are repetitive, you know, that's saying something. But
Yeah.
I think Isle of Dogs is cute. I think it's a well written story. I just don't think
It's definitely rewatchable. You know,
Definitely.
you can, just like Fantastic Mr. Fox, I feel like I can throw this on comfortably, be like, yeah, I can have a good experience watching this one.
I'm gonna say a B.
I don't know about that. I feel like we can put it C tier in front of Bottle Rocket.
I can live with that.
Okay.
I'll put it as, yeah, I think it's above about Rocket.
Yeah, just
so.
C tier in front of Bottle Rocket. Wait, but then we gotta fix some stuff. 'Cause I
Well,
feel
let's
like
get the last one out of the way before we start fixing things.
I agree. Okay, but this is what we're here for.
This is why we're here.
This is why we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Sain, for treating us to this film.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr.
Want to give
Sain.
a shout out to Mr. Sain.
Mr.
who
Sain was
abandoned
nice
us.
enough. Yeah, you know what, Mr. Sain? No, never mind.
Never mind.
Mr. Sain was nice enough to treat us to a viewing at AMC Theater to watch The French Dispatch. And it was a pleasant experience. You know, we had Brody there, we had Hannah there, we had Mr. Sain there. We all sat down. We enjoyed watching this film. It's just, right now it's like scratching an itch finally because we haven't been able to talk about this film amongst each other because we're saving all conversation about this for the podcast. But now we get to finally tell each other. It's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Something like 3 weeks.
We
It was November when we saw it. It's December.
Yeah. We can now talk about it because where do we start, man?
Off
This
the
was
bat,
a dense
I
film.
think I saw it twice.
I saw it only once.
And I think it's one of his most structured well films. It's structured incredibly well. It's put together incredibly well. It has so much in it, and it's put together as incredibly well. The characters are incredible. There's so many great cast members in this, so many great moments. It's a magazine adaptation, and Wes Anderson took it on in the best way possible. It's a story with so many stories, and it's such a well-told story, even though it has so many different stories. I think each story
Very
is
dense.
entertaining, and I think it works well. There's not a boring moment or a dull moment in this film, and I think it's the best film of the year so far that I've seen. I think this is probably my film of the year as of right now.
for sure. You know, French Dispatch. It's structured into different stories because well, first of all, it's about a magazine, kind of magazine publishing company called the French Dispatch, and you know, it's about their editor, their publisher dies, and they have to write, you know, this magazine, and it's these different stories, and you know, each person in the magazine writing, kind of the little company is, you know, writing a story.
I love how at the end of each story you'll show the writer and the editor confrontation. Bill Murray plays the editor, because who else would play an editor or a character like that in a Wes Anderson film? And at the end of each segment that we see in this film that they go through, there's that scene between the writer who wrote it and Bill Murray.
And it touches a special feeling because, like, that's kind of what we do. Mr. Sain is kind of like our editor.
Mr. Sain is Bill Murray.
Mr. Sain is Bill Murray, and you know, it was really nice to see this kind of dynamic. You know, being kind of like interested in journalism and stuff like that. The stories were so entertaining, especially the first one. I know we've talked about this already. It was just great. Before we get into kind of like each story, I kind of want to talk about the production quality, because
Great
the production quality was just
incredible sets,
crazy.
beautiful cinematography.
I feel like Wes
Great
Anderson had his opportunity to make kind of like his most Wes Anderson type movie, you know? Like, this is probably like the most Wes Anderson that Wes Anderson got. And kind of like his visual.
I see a lot of people say that. They call this the most Wes Anderson
It
Wes
is.
Anderson's been.
It is. It's just
I agree with that.
it's just Wes Anderson, you know? Like, there's just no doubt about it. Kind of just like seeing how every set was pieced together. I was like, the attention to detail, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was this scene where it was a room and the whole room was, like, lined with books. And I'm like, you know, you just got that many books just to make, like, one single scene. Like,
Yeah.
every square inch of every single scene, no matter how long it was on screen, was just made. And I know Wes Anderson made it the way he wanted to, you know? Like, a room that was there for, you know, 5 seconds in the film was, like, a complete room, you know, all with complete furniture. You know, it was just weird. It was just crazy seeing something like that.
The cast is crazy.
The casting was amazing.
The cast is incredible in this one.
We have, you know, our favorites, you know, Bill Murray, Adrian Brody.
Benicio del Toro and Wes Anderson film, great.
Yeah, that was interesting.
We talked about the first one. I think we had a collective agreement.
Yeah,
that's
that was
best.
probably the best one.
Revisions of the Manifesto. I think we should just go straight to that one because
Revisions of the Manifesto. And it follows the story of, what's his name? I'm so sorry.
Timothy Chalamet,
Timothy. Yeah, I don't know how to say his last name.
who I don't get the hype about. I think
Timothy-
he's a fine actor, but that's about it.
Chalamet.
Timothy Chalamet.
Anyway, he's writing a manifesto and he's getting the help of
Miss Kremitz,
yeah,
Frances McDormand,
making some revisions.
great actress.
Some, you know, the revisions to the manifesto, and you know, there's different things going on. It's just like a story about. I need to fart, dude.
Juliet. Do you want to do it? And then
You
we
do
edit
it.
out?
You do it.
Fart? I'm talking about
no,
fart.
dog.
And yeah, so yeah, it has Timothy Chalamet, Frances McDormand. I think this one's like my. I love this part. Like I said, there's not a dull or boring moment in this film. I just think this is my. If I had to rank them, there's no reason for me to say it, but if I had to, this would be like my bottom of the film. However, there's some beautiful moments in this film, like the tip top moment with that song, the whole ending sequence of the story, the whole, you know, Frances McDormand's a great actress, so of course anything with her is incredible. You know, there's not as much power to it as there were the other two stories, as emotion, I suppose.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's great.
It was great. There was some
Beautiful.
there were some good songs. There were some good visuals.
Incredible visuals. Beautiful visuals.
I think this is where the visuals kind of like got almost like to their best because there was a lot going on. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good little story. I think the last story was great as well.
I love the last story.
The last story was just
I think a lot of his humor comes out in that scene where it's Bill Murray, the writer, and he's like saying like, "I just wanted you to write a review on a dish," and like after you watch this whole story, find out all you needed to really write about was a dish that the dude made.
yeah. But yeah, it was just there's different things going on in the last one. There was
There's an interview going on.
there was an
between it.
interview. The only complaint I have that is it's very dense. You know, there's a lot of dialogue in
There's
this
a
film.
lot in this film.
And kind of like that interview part lost me sometimes. Because, like, while I do love dense dialogue, there were some parts where it kind of just, like, got a little
Yeah.
exhausting to listen to these characters talk for so long and so, like, you know, it was like they were interviewing this guy and he's like, I can memorize, you know, anything
Yeah.
I've ever written, and he starts talking, you know, it's just this conversation. It's a good scene. I really love that part. And then we go into, you know, this kind of complex storyline with the chef, and you know they start talking about, and I mean
Whole
that
story.
last scene. I mean it's just a whole story. You have to watch the film. I think it was interesting how they used black and white, and then they used color, and then they used an animated
These all
an
animated
animated segment at the end.
There's so much in this film.
There's so much in this film. It kind of. My only complaint is that it kind of exhausted me
Really?
because of how much there was.
I found it so beautiful. I found it
was
refreshing.
it was beautiful.
I don't know why.
It did kind of exhaust me. I feel like I only felt like that way because I feel like I need to watch it again.
I'm definitely gonna pick this up when it comes out.
I need to watch that one again because, I mean, you'll know when you watch the film, you know, that this needs to be watched 2-3 times because it's so dense, it's so packed. It is very beautiful. So yeah.
I think an A. I mean, I put an S, but I have respect for
An
Mr.
S?
Sain and you. I said A right now.
You said an S. That's
I think
very
we need to put an A,
interesting.
though.
No, but talk to me about why you said.
Well, I'll
it's an
talk
S.
about it when we do our list, and you'll see.
Okay. French Dispatch. I do agree with an A. It's bordering B though. But I do think it's an A. Probably last in the A. No. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox is last in the A. Can we fix it up?
Yeah, so now would be the portion we fix it up.
Okay. Rushmore versus Royal Tenenbaums.
Rushmore.
Okay. In the A tier. Okay, I think.
You want to move Darjeeling and limit it up?
Yeah,
'Cause I agree with
think,
that 100%.
I think we should move this up.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Sain. I think Mr. Sain put it in A. I don't know.
Well,
but-
Mr. Sain said we can't put an S, but that's
Yeah,
S.
that's
Like,
S.
S is final.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. I do think it's an A, but I think it is the last one in the A category. Grand Budapest Hotel. I consider an S personally.
Seeing as Mr. Sain had it in his top 5 and you consider it an S, I think
I think A, but the highest.
the
in
highest
A,
of the A. Yeah.
The A is fair. Moonrise Kingdom.
I think Life Aquatic's better than
I think yeah. Life Aquatic is almost an A. C. Yeah, I think this is good.
I think it's a pretty solid
I
tier
think this
list.
is a solid tier list. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess we can put this tier list probably in our somewhere below us. If you're looking at it through the website.
Now is the
And now we're gonna get into the part where we talk about our top 5.
top 5. I'm gonna let you go first.
I think I agree with Mr. Sain saying Rushmore is probably my number 1, just because I it's just such a personal.
Great film.
I relate to it personally. I think number 2 is probably Royal Tenenbaums, because I also related to that one personally. Number 3, probably Grand Budapest Hotel. Number 4, probably French Dispatch, and number 5 is probably Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Interesting list. Very solid list. Again, I don't think there's any wrong answers here.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my list.
My top 5. So this is coming from someone who's watched Wes Anderson most of their life. All this I've done for the podcast was simply rewatch films I've already rewatched. So take that into account when I tell you this list. Number 5, Life Aquatic. It's my number 5th one. Number 4, I have The Royal Tenenbaums. Great film. Incredible film. Number 3, I have Rushmore.
Okay.
Number 2, I have The French Dispatch at number 2. My
Really?
number 2nd, the Wes Anderson film's probably The French Dispatch. And my number 1 is, not even surprised, Darjeeling.
I knew it was gonna be that. I think it's interesting how you like Fresh Dispatch so much, and I when you say that this is coming from someone who's watched Wes Anderson most of their lives, I see that, because I feel like since you've grown up with Wes Anderson, seeing the progression, because French Dispatch is probably where Wes Anderson will had.
If you don't like Wes Anderson, you're not going to like French Dispatch.
Yeah, this is just Wes Anderson at his Wes Anderson, most Wes Anderson. I'm getting a little tired of saying Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson.
But, I guess seeing when you have, Bottle Rocket all the way to French Dispatch, it's just so amazing to see a filmmaker just cross this, this must be so fulfilling for Wes Anderson. Seeing Bottle Rocket, everyone hated Bottle Rocket. It had a cult following. The minority of individuals appreciated Bottle Rocket back then, and having this journey all the way to French Dispatch, it just must be crazy.
I'm going to be exhausted for Wes Anderson for a little while.
Yeah, I kind of hate Wes Anderson now.
But I'm really glad we finally had a chance to talk about him.
Well, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
You ready, Birdie? We like to talk about films for your consumption. Come take a seat, I'll tell you something. If you like movies, it's a thing for you. You're watching Film Brew podcast. That was exhausting, man. I don't want to do a podcast.